So we just wrapped up a pretty cool project for Black Dog Brewery, but this was a concept project. So basically what that means is this is a project that Black Dog did not hire us for, but we did purely for our own experience. So we've done some work in the food and beverage industry before, but it's been a little while and we feel like our skills have kind of outgrown our portfolio at this point. So we did this as a way to kind of update our portfolio, work with the local company, and create something pretty cool.
Yeah. And there's concepts and specs, and people in the video world will know they'll say doing a spec project or a project on spec. And this is across the creative industry, but
Yeah.
you made me aware of this.
Yeah.
The difference between a concept and a spec, just briefly.
Yeah, so a spec project is something that you are doing for a prospective client. So a client reaches out to you, but they're like, yeah, we don't really know about working with you, or, we're not really sure about this. We kind of want to see some sample work from you. So it's something that you will do once you've already got a client kind of hooked, but they're not quite sold yet. So it's something that you'll do for free with them or an extremely reduced price. Like maybe they just pay purely for cost, like you don't actually make anything from it, something like that. A concept is something that you do without the client being involved. So it'd be something like this, where you can work with the brand, you can show off brands, things like that, but it's not actually tied to the brand at all.
We weren't hired to do this. We weren't asked to do this at all. This was our complete creative take on this.
Yeah. Working on this, we had a few different creative ideas and a few different directions that we could have gone with this. And one thing is we had a team of a few really great people that we've worked with. Shout out Josh and Brandon. Yes.
Yes.
But we've worked with them on a few other projects before, mostly like narrative or talking head, like interview type setups and things. So we wanted to go a different direction and do something that was a little bit more like product, like a lifestyle product kind of focus. And maybe do you want to talk about like the difference between what is the difference between this or like setting up like product shots on, like a backdrop?
Yeah. So the goal with what we wanted to do with this was showcase the product where it lives. So it connects with the consumer. You'll see the product and its lifestyle. And I'm sure if you're watching this, we're showing footage of this spot that we shot here and it's playing behind us. But we thought, it's a local brewery. People probably hanging out. We shot this around, it was fallish. So it's probably people probably having a campfire. It's probably going to have a beer. So we wanted to put it in that element so people can probably relate to themselves by seeing themselves with the product and environment that's familiar to them. So that was the beginning of our concepts when we were thinking of stuff like that. There was Brandon that came up with this concept here that we ended up doing. He wrote this thing out. He came up with location. These are a lot of people he sourced, put together too. So shout out to him on that. Credit to him. So the lifestyle shoot, it's more putting the product or brand in where it lives so people can recognize it and relate, if that makes sense. So with this one specifically, it was where would you see beer or brewery? You're buying this beer. Where are you going to have it? Probably with some friends hanging out somewhere. So that's different from a product, a regular, just, I don't know what the word is for that, but just a product ad where it's just shots of the product, what it is, showcasing it. You could feature it in something, but it's not really
it's not as relatable.
Yeah. Showcasing it where people can see themselves with it or relate to the setting or scenario. I think you connect more with the product.
So I was more involved on the purpose of us doing a concept, like on more on the business and the marketing side of why we needed to update this in our own portfolio and kind of what the purpose was, why we chose Black Dog and being in the food and beverage industry. So I was more hands off whenever it came to the actual like direction and the production process. Do you want to kind of explain what the concept was and how you worked with Josh and Brandon and how we ended up with this video?
Yeah, so I knew we wanted to do a lifestyle ad with this beer. So I knew I wanted to connect it in some way, in some scene that people could relate to, especially around here in Mooresville. And this is where Brandon came in. I talked to him about what we were looking for in that. And he came up with this concept here of having people around a bonfire, which I really love. And it actually worked out for us because, he had location down and he knew some people that knew how to have a wiener. Liked having a wiener. It's not that hard. He knew some people that were down. So that really helped out with that. The only thing I really wanted was the Black Dog itself. I wanted to include that in there. So sourcing that was not as hard as I thought. Shout out to Ray and his dog Ellie that made it in this. But yeah, so that was the concept, was we wanted it to be relatable and people to kind of see themselves with the beer, if that makes sense in that.
Yeah.
I can go into the technical side on that
Yeah.
where I talked to Josh. Shout out to Josh, the DP on this. He's the one that shot this. He also colored it. I just told him I wanted something kind of vintage looking, kind of that nostalgic look. That was something we were all on the same page with from pre-production. This wasn't something we just threw together and shot in a day. We talked about this for weeks. We put together a bunch of boards and mellow notes and potential concepts and what was feasible, what was realistic, because with concepts like this, we don't have a budget, so we're doing this all out of straight out of our passion funds. So Josh chose to shoot this on some vintage lenses, and he also put a Promus filter on there to give it more of that organic, gritty look. We're a fan of the film touch for this, so he definitely did a good job there on that.
So something that I really enjoyed in this project was how we were able to take the background and experience in our team was largely on the narrative side, and I think we were able to find a really good blend of narrative and commercial filmmaking to kind of tie all of this together. So what is the difference? Just because I don't really have that filmmaking or video production background, so what's
Mhm.
the difference between a narrative film and like a product placement commercial
Yeah.
spot?
Well, it's kind of hard. It's hard for me to put into words. I think with narrative, you're selling an experience, and the commercial, you're selling a product, but you have to use that experience with the product to sell it. So trying to tie those is the challenge in that, and not lean too much into the narrative where you don't have a lot of time to tell a story.
Mhm.
So you need to be creative and do it all in little time. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges with this, where when we first started playing this out, we had a sequence in, and then we have to kind of go through and go, does this shot serve purpose to this product? It does to the overall story that's in our heads, but how do we show that in less shots
Mhm.
and portray it in a feeling than show it? In a narrative, you have more time to show and you can build up to things. Commercials kind of difficult where you have to build up to it and almost be there already. So we're kind of jumping into the scene here where we're already on our way to the campfire, but we really don't know a whole story behind these people. So
Mhm.
how do we portray that they're friends? I mean, this is an easy one. They're hanging out and having fun. They're playing. We have a little banjo there. I mean, it looks like they're clearly pretty close. So how do we
Yeah.
show that? And it's all done with expression in the shots, and that really comes off with just. I mean, that's a small example, but tying the narrative experience into a commercial, I think, is where if you get that to blend right, that's how you end up with a really great commercial piece to sell product. Is tying that experience into the product, the
Yeah.
emotion. I should say emotion and experience,
Mhm.
the emotional experience to the product.
Yeah, something that resonates with the consumers. Like you want it to
Mhm.
be relatable and memorable.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like you want them to feel like they're in the commercial without them realizing that they're being sold something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, it's like get them to see themselves with the product. They'll sell themselves if you can get them to sell themselves. I think that's the main goal in that. It's not flashy and we're just showing up close shots of the beer and just the cool sweat dropping on the side. I mean, those shots have a place, but
Yeah.
if that's all it is, I mean, are you just reminding me that beer exists? But how do you sell something that's new to a market? I think big brands that are already established, it's easy for like Coca-Cola, just show Coke, sweat dropping looks refreshing. They probably already had one. You're just reselling to a customer that's already had that before.
Yeah.
But a new brand that's maybe someone's not heard of and haven't tried yet.
A local brand.
A new local brand that you probably heard of and haven't tried it yet, but seen an ad that you might resonate with in some way. It might remind you of something. And then if you see an ad, something like this, maybe somebody's like, I haven't hung out with my friends in a while and had a beer, and they connect with that. And then maybe they'll think to try Black Dog Brewery and have that one memory there. It's connecting maybe in a nostalgic, emotional memory and then tying the product into that was kind of the thinking here on this.
Yeah. I love that. And I think we
Mhm.
did a pretty good job with
Mhm.
that too. Because
Yeah.
I know in the pre-production phase, we were spending a lot of time kind of planning out the whole background on the story and everything, which I think is good. I think it was a good creative exercise for all of us to kind of think about that and go through and like, okay, does this make sense? And I know it seems simple at this point, like it's just a bonfire, but there really was a lot of thought and process that went into actually making this feel like a relatable, fun scene that we wanted people to be a part of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So on the technical side of a shoot like this, some challenges we have. First of all, anytime there's that many people, that's the hardest thing is nailing down schedule and getting that many people involved. But I guess it's easy when there's free beer. It's easier to get people in there.
And
But
s'mores. We had
yeah,
s'mores
s'mores
too.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the dog was the one thing I didn't think we'd get. I reached out to a couple people and I forgot I had a friend and his dad had some black labs and I was like, would they be down to be in it? Would they be down? Go ask your dog, see if they're cool. But yeah, they were really cool. The dog performed perfect. It was awesome. So
very well
yeah,
trained dogs.
the one thing I was worried about was not the thing we needed to worry about at all. So on that end, but Josh, talking to him, we talked over, we talked for a minute on how we were going to light this fire scene because that can be difficult because one, shooting at night, and one thing we don't want to do is we don't want it to make it look sourcey. We're trying to go for this natural look. So how do you approach a fire scene like that? So he ended up putting this big diffusion sheet up. He had a light out there. It was really cool to watch him approach this here.
I think he did a really good job because Josh colored this too.
Josh did color this.
I think he did a great job making this look like it was at night, you know?
Yeah, he did.
And
yeah.
so, like,
yeah.
that it looks very natural. Like this, it doesn't look like there was much, if any, like post-processing that went on in this at all.
No, and I like that he had the film grain texture to it, which is something I wanted. I think it just fits like I said, the grittiness and the nostalgic of, I don't know. I thought grittiness is Mooresville. So I felt like that. I feel like that fits. So
Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest. Yeah. A lot of the look in these shoots come from the lenses. A lot of people don't know that. It's the lenses that really portray the look. So that's one of the first conversations we have. Usually me and Josh will have is, we know what we're doing. Camera matters. I think, for functionality, but the lenses are usually the bigger conversation on what it is we're going for.
Something else that I really like in this edit too is there's that ambient kind of background noise where you can hear the laughter, but it's not overpowering. Like it doesn't feel like it was added in, like it feels organic and natural.
Yeah.
So how did that even happen? Like how did we capture that kind of audio?
Well, I'm the one that ended up cutting this together. Like I said, Josh did color it. I just cut it. The audio actually is it's mostly the raw audio from the scene. So that's why it's just natural, because it was natural. And it sounded, I wasn't planning on doing that originally, but it did sound pretty good when I was cutting it together. And I just kind of blended it in and out. You'll hear there's some levels going in and out on that too. The music choices and the voiceover written by Brandon. So shout out to Brandon. I really like the voiceover, the words he chose when he wrote that. But yeah, that was really it. This wasn't really technical on the sound design side of it, but having that laughter in there, which they knew each other, so that was easy to get them to laugh. So they were kind of just doing that on their own. So
was that just like scratch audio, or did you actually like record specific pieces to include in there?
No, that was all. I mean, I guess you could call it scratch audio, but we didn't use it as scratch. I mean, we used it. So
I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about here.
But no, it made it. I don't remember I'm trying to think back in the BTS footage, if Josh had a mic on his camera or not. I think he did. He had a pretty beefy rig, which is kind of a running joke. Josh always says, you never have to worry about him having shaky footage because his camera's going to be heavy enough every time. And that's something.
20-pound cameras.
Yeah, that's something too with light cameras. You get that jitter and it looks cheap. Adding weight to the camera allows it to feel more organic and sway. And Josh always shows up with the biggest, meanest machine on set.
It worked.
So now this project's wrapped up and done. Where is this going and what are we planning on using it for?
Yeah, so this we are going to actually share with Black Dog, so they will be being able to see this. They can use it if they want or need to, anything like that. But aside from that, we are going to make landing pages on our website. And for anyone who may be curious, a landing page is a page that exists on your website, but is not actually linked in like the main navigation. So really the only way that you get to it is if you have a direct URL that goes to that. So we're going to be making landing pages that are specific to the food and beverage industry, and this will be one of our updated portfolio pieces. We're going to have case studies and behind the scenes content and everything to show on that landing page that we can then share with other prospective clients. This was a concept project, and so the whole purpose of this was basically just to update our portfolio and have something that we can show to other prospective clients that are within this specific industry. So I think out of this, we gained some pretty valuable BTS. It was a great experience working with Josh and Brandon. We all got some new kind of experience working in a way that kind of merged narrative and commercial video production, and working in product placement was good with a local brand too. So yeah, I think we accomplished what we were looking for out of this. Would you say so?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely learning experience, and I'm really happy with what we ended up with.